the topic for the week, which is something I always have something to say about, is temptation. Last week we were talking about self-discipline, right? And this week it's like that natural progression of temptation. What happens? And the topic for today is like, what does it look like for you? Because it can be super sneaky. So just want to talk about the progression of temptation and why it even enters your life in the first place. And when I look at where my life is right now, I feel extremely solid in pretty much every arena, because my main focal point, which was the one missing pie, right? Oddly enough, the missing pie in that big giant circle of life, is about my food intake and exercise. And when I look at why I don't do certain things, like about a month and a half back, I was having some serious back trouble, and I got an x-ray and it showed there was a little growth on my low spine, which they say is arthritis, which will progress. And when you start to hear those things, all of a sudden it made me feel extremely depressed. And when you get extremely depressed, what starts to happen, or what are we craving for? Positivity, right? It's like these short-term gains. It's this short-term reward. And Dave's on the call, and he's like, I know your inner fat kid wants to come out. And it's like, why do we have those things? What is it about that part of my personality, the inner fat kid that Dave calls it, that does something for me? And in truth, it's just that momentary rush of sugar. Like, sugar's freaking crack, but the way it makes your brain light up, you get addicted to a feeling. And so for me, what is temptation? Temptation is either something we've never had before that we think we want so desperately, and we create this entire story around it, or the temptation is around getting that short-term boost that we know is massively unhealthy or wrong for us, but it fulfills this either rush or this physiological change, which is temporary, and none of that serves us. None of it does. But we're chasing this feeling. And again, I don't know if I brought it up last week, but it was even like why people smoke. And in your head, I did bring this up because of what I was talking about regarding how the brain builds habits. We know that it's horrible for us, but there's a couple things that happen. Number one, we disassociate the fact that we're the rest of the world, that when we look at somebody who's smoking excessively, like, you're going to die, like, listen to your cough. We don't even see ourselves as human. We don't associate ourselves to any of that. And then the other thing that we do when we have this temptation is we just want to fix. We want to feel good. We want this feeling that is uplifting just for a second. And so we chase those things. And when you really break down temptation, especially when it's a massive negative, like, or to steal, right? Like, you're so tempted, you see all this money on the floor and it was beside someone who dropped it, or to not give money back when a cashier gives you too much money back. Like, what is it? And that's what I find the most fascinating. Like, if we chase it down the rabbit hole, think about, like, really is serving us, especially when it just sneaks in. It's like, oh, nobody will notice, or oh, that money's there. They're probably going to walk away, or it's too much money. Like, they don't deserve the money. The craziness that we actually start to put into our brain. So temptation, like, for me, it's really about a short-term upset or stressing about, or whatever the story is, right? And I'll tell you, like, man, temptation is so powerful. We've all experienced it. And then when we finish, man, the letdown is insane, right? That feeling of disappointment or whatever it is. And like, what does it look like for you? When do you notice that you get struck most by temptation? And right now, I feel extremely powerful with where my life is at. I honestly, I can't remember a moment in my life where I've ever felt this strong or more powerful. From a mental and a physical standpoint, you know, my physical standpoint is improving. And this morning I worked out like a demon, where I haven't worked out like that in a while. And I'm just adding these things because my wife and I made a bet for $100 to see in 30 days, you know, who can just have the best transformation from a physical standpoint. And now I have something, I have something to shoot for, you know? So will things get in my way? Sure. What will I do with them? Honestly, that's up to me. But at this point, because I feel so strong overall, that, like, when you do feel strong, you want to do a lot less harm to yourself. And that's the other thing around temptation. When you feel abundance, you don't need to take somebody else's money that you see there on the floor and create a story around it. When you're suffering, you don't need to just go eat that tub of chocolate ice cream, you know? And we just know, we do know what's right. But that's why I'm saying, like, where do you see it sneak in for you? And those, for me, those are the things that I would do. I would make excuses around, you know, I don't do it all the time, or I wouldn't even want to allow myself to think about the story behind what I was doing. And then I would overindulge, and then I would feel like shit later, and then I'd beat myself up mentally, and then rinse and repeat that cycle, right? And that cycle, I mean, it doesn't serve me, it doesn't serve anybody. So right now I'm on a mission, and I'm committed to changing all that crap, because I understand what temptation has done to me in the past and how negative it is. And then you live with the thought and the memory and the feeling, and then the self-loathing, right? So be very careful around temptation. And I'm going to open it up to the room just to see where everybody else is with that, you know? And like, what does it look like for you? Because again, it can be super sneaky. So whoever would like to take this first, I'd love to hear your examples of where you find it starts to creep in, and then what happens. So whoever wants to go first before I start drawing names out of a hat. Anyone?
I'll go.
All right, let's go.
Okay, so for temptation with me, a lot of it deals with what happens the night before I go to sleep. So if I want to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and do my, you know, daily routine, the night before, I have to, you know, stop eating like around 6. So no snacking or nothing along those lines. No alcohol or anything along those lines. And it'll make it easy for tomorrow. But as soon as that happens, as soon as I say mentally, oh, it's just one snack or it's just this one drink, and I'll be fine. And then next morning I feel bad every single time. And then I don't want to get up and I don't want to do the stuff that I want to do. And then it causes a snowball effect, right? Instead of like, okay, I just made this mistake, no biggie. Let me get up out of bed. Let me do what I have to do. Then it's like, for me, if it didn't work or things didn't go the way that I wanted it to plan out to go, then it's like, all right, well, I'm not going to work out tomorrow. And then next thing you know, that was Monday. Next thing you know, you look up Thursday and you haven't worked out all week. And then when I go run or I'm doing whatever I have to do, typically I'm doing 2 miles. But if I take off a week, then I'm barely doing a mile and I'm huffing and puffing. And so what has helped me is, if I did do some of those things the night before, not to beat myself up and just say, okay, either I have to do it 100% or not. I'll just go through the things that I have to do. And I did that like twice last week, and I got through the workout and I felt really good and everything was cool. But sometimes that temptation to eat something or to do something. And when I say eat a snack, I'm not talking about like just a little small snack. I'm talking about like 6 fruit snacks, 2 donuts, all this crap that I'll just feel horrible the next day, and then I just don't want to do anything. But if so that's the little temptation, and those 6 fruit snacks will stop me from working out 4 or 5 days in a row. And so I gotta, get a hold. Right. I have been getting a hold of that and taking control of it.
So the big question behind all of that is, what does trigger the temptation, right? Like, what's going on where you want that food? What are you trying to satisfy that you didn't overcome by denying it?
It's that effect. So like, I didn't work out, I didn't do what I was doing, and a workout gives me sort of in the mornings, give me that rush. And so if I gorge on some fruit snacks or whatever it is, then at the time, all this sugar, like you said, it's like a drug. It is. And you're like fiending for it. And so that's, what causes all of that. And then, at the end of it, like, it's not working.
But that's what I mean. The night before, because you know better before you put the first one in your mouth, what drove you to the fruit snack?
Going into the kitchen, and instead of grabbing a piece of fruit, I'm seeing this box of fruit snacks on the floor.
But depending on your mindset, does it matter? Or it's just like, oh, I'll have the fruit snack. Is it if you're struggling with something and all of a sudden you want the temptation of sugar, or is it just, oh, I saw fruit snacks, I want the fruit snacks?
No, typically it's something that may have triggered that, whether it was me thinking, oh, I worked out, I did everything for these 3 days, I could take today off. Or a situation may have popped up, or something that may have been stressful with regards to whatever, and that was like a comfort thing for me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to get at. It's like, why do we do these things to ourselves where we know better, right? Like, I always think about the Matrix when Neo's first on that Nebuchadnezzar, and he's having his first meal that isn't like real earth food that was in his imagination. It was that slop. And imagine if that's all we ever had, right? What would the temptation be like then? Like, what would we do? Because there wouldn't be something to be that drug of sugar that fulfills our mind, or the rush of stealing, right? Some people get a rush just from stealing. Other people that don't feel pain emotionally, they cut, right? They're cutters. And that's what's so interesting, is like, we crave some sort of a response. And that to me is what I find the most fascinating about human nature and human behavior. So that's why I'm so excited to talk about temptation today, because it's like, it's not just what we do, it's the why we do it. And that, right, it's super sneaky, and we tell ourselves these things, and all of a sudden they happen, and then we feel like shit, and then we repeat. It's like, so yeah, minimizing those options so that we can be a lot better at that is obviously the healthy choice, but we don't always make it. So thank you for that, Jermaine. All right, we have time for one more. Who wants to go on temptation?
I'll always go. I'm looking great today.
Okay, let's do it.
It's just going to bounce off Jermaine's, really. Friday, sorry I wasn't on, by the way. I went back to Verizon. Don't ever get a third-party plan, any of you, because it doesn't save you money. It's terrible. Took 2 days, and all morning on Friday, I'm bawling. I don't have service. People are like, what's wrong? Did you change your phone number? Because they're texting me. I'm like, I couldn't call anybody. It was terrible. But I was like thinking about this. I'm doing my weekly thing. And it's the same thing, Jermaine. Like, I didn't work out this morning. So I'm writing in to go to the gym at 10. I got to fit it in. So then I'll do the same thing. I'm like, oh, I didn't work out this morning. It's okay if I'm just going to eat all the carbs this afternoon. I'll just start tomorrow, and then I'm like, oh, and I wake up and I'm like puffy, and I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have done that, So I just started this week. Well, I was putting it in last week just to get used to it. So I'm doing the intermittent fasting thing, which I like better. so I don't eat until noon. And then I was looking at it, I'm like, can I still have Heavy Whip in my coffee with fasting? And I can, but it's only a tablespoon, and that's just like a drop for me. So I'm like, all right, it's a freaking adjustment. I guess I can, because I can't do black coffee, So that's what I'm doing, is I'll do the same thing. And then what I'll do is I'll be like, oh, I'll just go later. And then I don't go later, and it just escalates. Yep. So I gotta make sure, if I don't do it before our call, because it's just stupid for me not to get up. I'm up, So if I don't do it before the call, I got to do it after the call. So that's what I'm going to do, 10 o'clock. So,
yep.
So that's my thing, is the same thing as Jermaine. We're like brother and sister here with that, man.
Right.
Yeah.
So what do you find, like, what is it about some of the things that you do that I always relate to The Bug's Life, because it's my favorite example. It's like, watch out, don't go towards the light, but it's so beautiful, man.
I love that so much.
It's just because it's so true, and that's what we do, and we know. It's like, no. Well, I did it anyway.
But it tastes so delicious.
And we just know. And it's not about a reward. We're not rewarding ourselves. We're emotional eating,
Because later on you feel like shit for doing it. It's like an endless cycle.
So that's why I want to talk about temptation this week. It's because, like, as we're working to change everything, and last week was self-discipline, what is it about the temptation that just overrides self-discipline? And it's typically that there isn't enough pain in our life to override doing that negative, right? Like, I'll always remember one of my cousins who was a raging alcoholic, and his doctor told him, Mr. Kaufman, you have two choices. You can continue drinking and die, or you can completely quit and live. And so I was like, and he quit drinking that day. And he had a decision to make, right? And he is a super narcissist, and he wasn't done being self-centered enough to leave this planet. So he quit his drinking. And that's what I'm saying, like, pay attention to what it is that actually causes you to stop yourself from doing the things that you shouldn't be doing. And then just look at how can you make that consistent. And it really is just a story. Like this morning, the workout that I had, and getting up super early and doing everything, like, I felt like a beast. And then I just challenged myself, in my head, I've been waffling with what I'm doing physically or with my food intake. And it's like, why? I can make all those choices. People look at what I do in my work world and everything else, and they're like, how do you do that? And they have food dial food in. I'm doing all this other crap, that other
can
people
I say
are
one more thing about that? Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't. So as an athlete too, because I'm still doing all this stuff, I don't want to eat specific keto's fine for me because I had gluten issues for so long. Now sure. I don't. So I've been eating pizza and burritos like they're going out of style, but I don't want to eat specifically. So that's the other thing. That triggers me. I don't want to get weighed. I don't want you to measure me. I'll be healthy. I'll be healthy, but I got to do intermittent fasting so I can eat things that I want to eat sometimes, because that's a trigger for me too. Having someone go, you can only eat this many calories, and then having to do this and do that for me.
But remember, Katie, there's no, like, with what I'm saying, there's no judgment or comparison. Right. It's just for what I know I need.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I can't do that.
Yeah. How you create your lifestyle is yours. If it's a healthy way of living, that's awesome. Yeah. Right. I'm just saying my healthy way of living would incorporate cupcakes and chocolate bars, and it's like, no. And it's just, my story has to be stronger than my temptation, right? My desire to do what I know is necessary, and to do the harder things, that's necessary for me. And I have to remind myself often until it becomes habitual. So again, I wanted to talk about those things because, as for those of you that are listening to everyone, you're replaying what it is that you do in your head. And we know. It's just really about understanding what we truly want and what we know benefits us, and taking those things and allowing them to supersede the momentary, like, I really want to feel good from my cupcake, you know, and no. It's like, go sit in the corner. I'm taking the cupcake away. This is your fourth one. No, you know, and it's just because, once I get going, that's it, man. Gloves are off, frosting on my face. Right.
Like the little kids are like, did you have a cupcake and you've got chocolate everywhere? No. No.
And it's like, I'll catch myself like scooping the bottom of the container for like the chocolate, you know, and I'm drooling right now thinking about it, right? So it's just real, like I saw the cake in my head and now I'm drooling. I'm like, I want the cake. But that applies to everything. Or there's also a resistance around things that we know we should be doing. And there's a temptation that draws us somewhere else versus what we should be doing, which could be our work activities, which could be whatever it is, right? Just look at what is pulling you and ask yourself if it's as strong as it seems and does it belong? And if not, then again, just shift your story away from it. And it doesn't have to be like a fly walking and buzzing your ear that's always irritating you. It's there until you like finally kill it, you know, which in this instance, it would be finally eating it or giving into the temptation. It doesn't have to happen. But our willpower is what we let go of. So again, design a story strong enough for you that you play this game. It's just a game, right? It is just a game. But we usually give in, and I don't know about losing the game, but like, we're going to play this game again tomorrow, right? I hope I do better as a contestant in my life for 24 hours on Tuesday, because Monday's a write-off. It's like, yes, we can reset the story, but do we have to keep doing that and saying that every day? Okay, I screwed up Tuesday now, I'll do it on Wednesday. Like, willpower and focusing on the things that you know will serve you and then feeling great while you're doing it. I mean, that's what we have to tie into, because if not, then it's just a lot of suffering, a lot of misery, a lot of self-loathing, a lot of negative. Let's just put it that way. So that's what I got for today. I am feeling exceptionally powerful today. I'm going to kick some massive ass, and I'm excited to do it. And, you know, share and still be a nice human along the way.
Do you have flames on your shirt?
It's like I don't know what it is, like a palm kind of basketball with fire. Right? It's
fire.
Like right? On fire, but so kind of like meditation, like I'm a super cool fire. I don't know how else to put it. That's a juxtaposition and a half, but I just feel like every day as I inch forward into who I know I am and how I want to live my life, it's a lot easier to push temptation out of my life, because I'm not trying to fill voids based on negativity or absence in my life, you know? And yesterday of all days for me was my first Father's Day without my dad, and it was really fucking emotional for parts of it. But I didn't take that emotion and try to fulfill it with garbage, you know? I also worked to honor myself while I was struggling through those emotional swings. So, you know, we can do whatever the hell we want, and we can elevate ourselves whenever we want. So that's what I was working on yesterday and today, and I will continue. So pay attention to what's catching you today. Be stronger than it, because you are it. And figure this shit out, because it's just a little story. It's not that bad. So I look forward to hearing more about this tomorrow and what you guys were facing today. So if all of you can just think about a little story that you might have encountered today, and we can talk about it tomorrow, okay? Then with that, I will leave all of you, my children. So
bye.
until Liana, bye. See y'all later.